Emory for many reasons, for Emory being Emory, and how fantastic the neurology program is as far as diversity in so many realms. We have, I think the biggest thing for me was that we have multiple hospitals. That we work at Emory Clifton, or just one Emory building, Grady, and then the VA some. I really wanted to make sure that I had a broad experience in kind of hopping around from different hospitals. A couple of the other programs I was really in love with were great, but had one hospital. I felt like I wasn't going to be as comfortable kind of moving forward in fellowship and other things if I didn't do that. But as you guys either may know or will kind of come to learn, our neuroscience programs are so well supported here. At Grady, we have such a fantastic neuroscience department. The 8th floor is the best floor. It is our neuro floor, and it's very much our home. I guess it's too bad that you won't get to physically be here this year, but maybe next year soon. Let's see, what else can I say? So I guess, it's 3rd month of 3rd year, and we are quite busy, but I also live in Atlanta, and I have a complete city around me that I can walk almost anywhere to, and have enough time to spend all of my money on food and going out. So so I think our schedule is okay in that realm. We'll get a little bit more into details with answering questions. I think that you guys had asked about that. I think it's even hard for me in 3rd year. We are trying to pick fellowships at this point. And I think that we have such good exposure to so many things. I can't decide. I know that you could kind of take it the other route and say that you don't have enough exposure to things maybe in some programs. But here, I think I have such a broad exposure and love for so many things. Now I don't know what to do next. So that's all I will say for now. We'll share to my wonderful residents.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll help you figure that out here in the next couple of months. We got you, Chris. All right. And next, we will invite one of our other PGY3 residents, Dr. Sean Barton. Same thing, Sean, if you don't mind introducing yourself, talking about how much you love Emory.
Perfect. I understand the assignment. So like Heasley said, my name's Sean Barton. I grew up in Maryland originally, went to UMBC for undergrad there. Then I went to Vanderbilt for med school. I actually did MD PhD there. So I did like the 2 years of med school, then 4 years of grad school, did a lot of research in Alzheimer's, specifically with biomarker development in transgenic mice. And then after that, finished med school and then came here. I think in terms of just kind of talking about interests of going forward, I'm also interested in movement disorder. So that's one of the things I'm going to apply into, or that is the thing I'm going to apply into this year. Specifically with that, I think kind of piggybacking off of what Presley said, I think one of the major advantages of our program is having that ability to really get that exposure to subspecialties early on. So I did a lot of rotations, even during PGY 1 year, just to see what kind of things, like especially on the outpatient side, because I was already kind of leaning more towards an outpatient specialty that is kind of hard in some other programs to get exposure to. I will say, in terms of what really drove me to decide to come here, there are a couple different, there's a lot of different reasons I wanted to come here, but I think the major things that really stood out to me was a lot of the flexibility and the adaptability within the residency program itself, where you can really kind of tailor it to what you're interested in. So for me, I came in with a very research heavy background. So I was looking for a program that gave me the flexibility to continue doing research during residency and kind of have the opportunity to explore different things I'm interested in as I start to develop my clinical interests too. So this is one of the few programs that actually allowed me to get in a lab even during PGY 2 year, PGY 3 year. So I'm on a research block now. I'm doing wet lab work. It's what I wanted to do. And that's something you can't do at most other residency programs. So that's one thing I'm happy to talk about. But I think one of the other things that was a really big drive for me is just kind of the general feel. I think you can't really underestimate the vibe of a program and how important that is, and just kind of following your gut. I think here when I interviewed, it seems like the residents were the happiest and they got along. They were happy to come out and meet the applicants and happy to just kind of tell you how really how much they loved it and just how much support they had, and just getting that kind of feeling and feeling like you had a good support system was such a big part of the decision-making process.
All right. And last but not least, we're going to have one of our PGY2s, Chineze Mwebube. Hold it down. Same thing, Chineze.
Sounds good.
Chat.
Hey everyone, I am Chineze. I'm one of the fresh PGY2s. So a little bit about myself. I'm Nigerian background, but I'm actually Canadian. So for those who have questions about being international, I guess, resident, I can definitely touch on that. So I went into biomedical science undergrad here in Canada, and I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. So I ended up doing a master's in music and neuroscience. So I went to London for a year, which is amazing, and then did some research before starting med school. And that's when I was like, I love neurology. So I went to med school in Stony Brook in New York, in Long Island, and I moved further south. So now I'm here at Emory. I'm similar to everyone else on the panel not on the panel, on the webinar, where I actually didn't get to interview in person. And there are a couple of reasons why I was really drawn to Emory. To be honest, I didn't know anything about Emory before, during the application process. I somehow got in touch with Ahizole's cousin, and she connected me to Ahizole, told me about the program. And then after doing some more research, I just learned more about the program and just fell in love with it. The main few things is the diversity of the program. If you look at other neurology programs, there's no other program like ours that looks like ours. They're so diverse, just like Presley said, in so many different ways. So that was a big draw to me. Obviously the quality of the program, I wanted somewhere that had obviously really great clinical education, but also that was very well-rounded. And with neurology, especially like PGY2, for example, you're so inpatient heavy typically, but I just started, I'm 3 months in, and I've already rotated in 3 different outpatient subspecialties while still have getting like a good inpatient experience as well. So I've had like so many different exposures already, which has been really, really great. And that's where in other programs I found. And then also wellness was a very big thing for me. I know a lot of the programs, you're gonna be learning a lot of the same things. Some you may have more exposure than others, but I really wanted to be in a program where I felt very supported. And I will be honest, like I hadn't met the residents in person, and I saw everything virtually, and everyone just felt so down to earth, so normal. And I just felt very welcome already. Dr. Matthews is amazing and just very wellness oriented. So there's so many things that we can get into it later about the structure of the program that really promotes wellness, and just the overall culture. You see the residents are happy. And now that I'm here, now that I'm in the neurology program, I feel so unbelievably supported. And there's so many examples that I can go on about, I guess, during the webinar as well. So those are the main reasons. And then lastly, I wanted to be in a city. Atlanta is amazing, very diverse. I came to visit, I think it was February, like the month before match, but at that point I kind of already made up my mind, and I love it. You can do so much stuff outdoors. There's so much good food. There's, the airport, it connects to literally everywhere you want to go as well. So yeah, I can say so many different things, but those are the main reasons I chose Emory.
All right. Thank you kindly, Chineze, and Sean and Leslie as well. What we're going to do real quick, because I see we've got a lot of questions already in the chat, and then you guys already submitted a lot of questions through the registration link as well. So I wanted to hit very briefly on a couple of the questions that you guys had asked that under normal circumstances would be like maybe more appropriate for a program director, Dr. Matthews, or assistant program director, Dr. Hutto, to ask, but we did want this to be, more of kind of like a resident thing. And of course, our program directors were super supportive of that and kind of let us run this ourselves. So they're not here, but they did provide some answers to some of the questions that were asked earlier. So I'm just gonna go through a couple of them, and then we'll hopefully that'll help answer some of the questions that you guys had. So one question that came up was, are there any cutoffs for year of graduation and step scores? So to address the step score portion, there are no step score cutoffs. We've always prided ourselves on being a holistic review. We were doing that before like it was hip or what have you. So there is no step score cutoff. And the year of graduation is at least 5 years ago. But if you've done significant clinical work in the interim in the US, then that can be put aside. And so that was the answer to that question. Another question was asked, how will program signals or geographical preferences be used in application selection? And Dr. Matthews said, we're definitely planning to give interview preference to applicants who signal their interest in our program. Obviously we want residents who want to be in Atlanta. So that is something that might be able to give you a bump up. Another question was asked, how will you be weighting step 1, or COMLEX 1 scores, with some people having numeric scores and some people having pass fail. And again, just kind of reiterating, we never really put an emphasis on step 1 scores to begin with. It's always been more of a holistic process. So like the emphasis, in general is really more on the letters of recommendation, the clinical comments in your dean's letter or MISP, your demonstrated passion, how the residents feel about you when we talk to you at resident night, your life experiences, like all of those things end up weighing in a lot more, I think, than maybe some other programs that focus more on the numbers. And so we don't anticipate it being a significant issue with this. And so another question that was asked is, how will we be using supplemental applications when reviewing candidates? And this is from Dr. Matthews. She says, as a program, it's been difficult to tell which applicants are truly interested in our program versus who are just applying here because it's easy to interview virtually and they're applying to a massive number of programs. So the supplemental application will be used to try to identify applicants who are truly interested in Emory. And then a question that came up in the Q&A and also was asked previously is like, are we DO friendly? And I know you might look currently at our resident list and not see a DO, but I can tell you that our chief last year was a DO, and that the chief a year before that was a DO, and the chief a year before that was also a DO. And we have numerous faculty who are also DOs. So we are a DO friendly program. I know it kind of looks a little weird that we don't have any current residents who are DOs, but we don't want that to reflect at all on the fact that we are certainly a DO friendly program. We don't hold that against anybody. Okay, so with that being said, I know you guys have put a lot of things in the Q&A. We're gonna try to get to some of the questions that were sent ahead of time first. And so I'm going to call upon Sean Barton to answer this question about our research program and just kind of like how he's taken advantage of the research opportunities here. If you can kind of touch on the NRRT while you're there.
Yeah, so I can definitely talk about that. I saw a couple questions in the Q&A and that came up beforehand about that. So I think one of the questions was whether or not we have a research track, and the answer is we do. So like Heasley was saying, it's the NRRT, so the Neurology Resident Research Track. And really it's a focus, there's different levels of how involved you can be in that, but we were trying to standardize it more than it was in the past couple of years or past few years, where it's kind of, you kind of expressed an interest in research and then you said you're on the research track, but now it's really being run by Dr. Rangaraju, who is really doing a good job of trying to standardize this, like the support system through it. So pretty much what you do in order to get in on the research track is just tell him you're interested in it. There is an application, but it's really just a way of just showing that you have an interest and just kind of introducing yourself more so than anything. It's not really a competitive process. It's not, and my understanding is there's not really a limit on the number of people that can actually be in on that track either. And what that does through the NRRT is it gives you the ability to, the ability to go to some of the seminars that we have. So we have some special seminars that we do, just talk about different topics important in research. And then you also get paired with a faculty mentor. So this is someone separate from your research faculty mentor, but another faculty that may be outside of your area a little bit, but somebody else that's kind of like an outside observer that can help you in your process as you start to design your own research project and your own research interests beyond that. But really in terms of like what kind of research you want to do or how involved you want to be, there's a lot of flexibility in that. So I can talk about my experience personally, and then if other people want to talk about some other ways that they've used the research track, then I might open it up. But like I had said, I'm coming more from a bench research background where I did a lot of wet lab work. and which is a little atypical in what most people do as opposed to like more clinical based research. The way the program does work is you can have a lot of dedicated time for research in the second and third year. That's up to 12 weeks in the second year and up to 14 weeks in the third year. And then I think someone else asked about how much time you have during, and about like R25 and things like that, and that kind of funding opportunities. So pretty much you have the 12 weeks during your second year, 14 weeks during your third year, and then you can have up to 6 months during your fourth year. I will say, as you start to use more research time, it may be a little more limited in the number of people that can do that, just because you can't pull like the whole PGY4 class from clinic to do 6 months of research. So as you get kind of further involved and along, it may be a little bit more competitive. And if everyone wants to do that amount of research time, but most of the time it's not really everyone that wants to do 6 months of research. But so we don't have a dedicated R25 program. We had one, I believe, about 6 or 7 years ago, and then Emory lost it. The reason for that was because not enough people going through that program were applying for junior faculty awards through K grant applications. And that just resulted in loss of NIH funding. And that's one of the reasons that we're starting to try and standardize the NRRT and kind of make our own style of an R25 program. So it's something that was new, actually started by Dr. Rangaraju last year, and with a lot of support from the department itself, in that we actually have an R25 equivalent program. And what that does for us is it allows you to have that dedicated 6 months of research during fourth year, as well as additional funding to support your research. I think at this point, it's up to $10,000 that you can actually get from the department and put towards your research itself. And that can be funding for whatever you really need to fund stuff in things in your lab itself. If like I may try and hire an undergrad, so that could be money that could go to that if I get that money, things like that. So that's, so based off, and then there's also an opportunity to extend that funding into fellowship. But because this is an Emory specific program, it's going to be only if you stay here for fellowship. But really, like I said, this is the most, out of all the programs I interviewed at, this is the most research time that I could get during residency by far. Most other programs, you can only get about 6 months worth of research during your fourth year. At this point, I'm already generating data. I can already start working on applications. I can start applying for fellowships and apply for extra grant money because I already have data at this point, and hopefully set myself up to publish during the fourth year.
All right, lots of information there. Thank you very much, Sean. And just to kind of, on the flip side of that, you can do research and you also don't have to do research. And so we do have one scholarship requirement, which is done, in your fourth year in terms of like a grand rounds presentation, but that can be a quality improvement project that you do in the hospital or with the residents themselves or anything along those lines. And so there's plenty of people who haven't pursued research directly. There's plenty of people who, like Sean, are like predominantly research if they could help it. And so we've got a good mix of both. All right, thanks for answering that question, Sean. And so to go next, let's see. What is the general patient census and how are didactics structured? Presley, do you want to touch on that?
Okay, so let's start with didactics because the census will get complicated depending on which hospital we're at and what service we're on. But so didactics, we have a pretty robust schedule of lectures that we can attend or virtually attend every week. Lots of stuff going on every day. Specifically, though, the didactics that we have intentionally protected time for are every Friday from 11 to 2. And we go, and no matter what rotation you're on, it is protected time where you sign out your pager or, whatever method of communication, and you go to didactics, or if you're on nights or, doing something where you can't make it for whatever reason, you can also Zoom. But it's nice to go, when everybody's there. It's nice to see everybody. We have 3 lectures, 3 hours, give or take. Really, they're usually like 30, 45 minutes. And then we kind of talk about things. We have lunch every Friday at didactics all together. But specifically didactics, 3 hours on Friday. We have 3 separate lectures. I think it's once a month that our PGY2s will do a journal club. Everybody just does one your PGY2 year. And then we have all sorts of lectures that are blocked out in kind of subspecialty or kind of ideas like that. So the first block is going to be neurologic emergencies and preparing you for just neurology, kind of like a little boot camp. And then we move on to, movement disorders, stroke, various things. But again, that will be every Friday. And what's cool about that, not only is it protected, so when you're on consults or other services, you can go from your inpatient rotation to our didactics. You can also we also have so many other lectures. So every Thursday morning at 9 a.m. we have a case conference, which is how it sounds, and that we present an interesting case. Our PGY2s and 3s on one of the consult services will put that together. And oftentimes, being that we're all at different hospitals, that will Zoom into, unless you're at Grady or Emory, depending on where it is that week. So that is didactics. And again, we have tons of other conferences throughout the week that you can join into based on your specialty of interest. There'll be the neuroimmunology conferences, movement disorders, neuromuscular, kind of almost everything. So that's didactics. And then, okay, so patient census. So we have, I think someone had asked about services, and we have several different services. We have at Grady, we have a consult service that can carry anywhere from 5 to 30 patients, depending on what's going on and how efficient we are. Our wards at Grady, where we are the primary team, will have anywhere between roughly, I would say on average, like 12 to 15 patients, but it could range per team, could range from anywhere from 10 to 20-ish. You personally would typically be carrying, it very much depends on kind of the day and staffing, but you would be carrying anywhere from 3 to 8 on a ward service, just depending on how busy you are and what the day is. Let's see, we have our stroke service, which is just however many strokes happen. What else? I think that kind of covers censuses. Did I cover that?
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah.
I mean, I could go on forever, but how many more minutes do you want?
Yeah, I mean, it's very much like every other place. It's hit or miss. You've got your good days and you've got your not so good days. All right, buddy. But overall, we feel pretty supported. Have APPs working with us, and as she mentioned, lots of attending support when it comes to like making sure that we can get out and type of didactics and other things. Thank you, Presley. All right, and let's see here. Chineze, since you talked about your clinic experience, could you talk to us about like a typical day in the outpatient clinic? You can talk a little bit about your personal resident continuity clinic and some of the experiences you have in the subspecialty clinics.
Yeah, so I think it also, just like Presley said, it depends on what clinic you're on. I've done cognitive, I'm in movement right now, and I did neuromuscular. Typically for the clinic days, it starts between like 8 to 9, really, and then you're assigned to an attending, so sometimes the same attending all day, or maybe morning and afternoon you switch. And then the last patient is like from anytime from like 3 to 4, really. You may get out at 5 or so. So again, it really just depends on what the schedule is for each attending. But it's been pretty good so far. I will talk about resident clinics. So essentially this year we have it so that it's continuity clinic half day, so in the PMs once per week, and you have it either at Emory or Grady, and typically you alternate between the two of them. So whatever service you are on, you go to clinic. So if you're inpatient, you go. If you're outpatient, you go, and then it alternates to help with like not so much driving every single time, depending on where you are as well. So again, that would range, like you can have anywhere from 1 patient to maybe, I think the most I had was 6, but 6 is not the norm. It typically is between like 3 or 4, and it's pretty nice. I mean, I'm just starting, so I'm just getting new patients or patients from other residents who've now like moved on to fellowships or different institutions. So still like getting my patients, but so it's pretty good. It's pretty straightforward, pretty typical. Anything else? And we also have, let me think, we also have lumbar puncture clinic. We have like 3 of those. So you have, you'll have those during your outpatient rotations. You have like 3 or 4 a year in the morning. So I've had 2 so far, and I think I have 1 more left. So that typically happens in your outpatient clinic as well.
All right. Yes, Presley.
So I want to say, so we, she was saying that we have our weekly clinics, which we do now. And I want to say last year we changed that recently. And I want to say this for a couple of reasons, is that one, we can implement almost any change that's reasonable and that we all agree on and want to make. But also I know that for me, that was a big kind of annoyance in programs where I thought, I don't want to drive from this hospital to that hospital and go to clinic every week. I really hated that idea. So the fact that we were able to change that for my second year last year was amazing. Just the fact that we made that change. Turns out that when we made that change, it was actually not that effective in helping us learn, because we moved all of our clinic days to a 2-week block, and it kind of affected our subspecialty exposure. So then we had feedback on that, realized this is affecting things not exactly how we thought it would. Yes, it keeps us from having to drive, 1/2 day a week. But anyways, we realized that encroached on our subspecialty time, and we changed that back this year. So we made a huge change last year for the, attempting to make things better for us. And then we realized, that actually, wasn't the best. Let's change it back, which is a huge thing, I know, for our chiefs, for scheduling things. So thank you. But again, we can elicit those changes. So anything that we feel like is something that will help our program and help us from a wellness standpoint, then we are able to elicit those changes pretty quickly.
Yeah, and it wasn't just a change back. We did, try to make it so that people who were at, for example, Grady on an inpatient service could just stay at Grady for their clinic and not have to drive to Emory and things of that nature. So it's kind of like trying to find the best of both worlds. But that's honestly, for me, one of the biggest boons to our program is our ability to have a program director who supports us, who, if we say, hey, this is a problem, can we find a solution for it? She actually will go to bat for us. I can give multiple stories. Everyone on the panel here can give multiple stories of how she's done that, because she really supports our residents. So very happy for that. All right, here, let's go to another question. Let's see, Sean, can you talk about how closely you work with the child neuro program?
Yeah, I can definitely talk about that. So pretty much during, the biggest overlap we have with them is during our PGY 2 year, where our PGY 2 year is pretty much the same as their PGY 3 year. So they're really just a part of your class at that point. So they're like so for the child neuro, just for other people on the call that aren't as familiar with it. So they do pretty much 2 years of Gen Peds, and then the 3rd year of residency, which is equivalent to our 2nd year, they're doing mostly adult neurology at that time. So really, they're part of your class during their your 2nd year. So you really get a lot of overlap with them. After that, they kind of head off and spend the rest of their time like just on the children's hospital side. So we have a couple different children's hospitals that they rotate through. But then during our PGY 3 year is when we do the majority of our child neuro time on the adult side, where you do the 3-month requirement per ACGME requirements. And at that point, they're going to be your senior resident. So you get to see them again. And they're going to be the ones that kind of, tell you how to navigate a whole new hospital. And also, we also do night call with them. And they kind of serve as our buddy call system too, again, serving as your senior resident with their experience. So really, you have a lot of overlap with them. They're really just kind of part of your class for that 2nd year, and you're going to see them for the next couple of years afterwards.
They also join us for weekly didactics on Friday, so they're very much integrated into our program, very much so. We're very happy about that. Let's see here, and just to answer the question, because we talked about outpatient time here, how much dedicated outpatient time is there, particularly during PGY 2 year? I think you have your resident clinic half day every week, and then you have, I want to say 2 to 3 months of outpatient that's separate from your elective time if you decide you want to take some elective time for that in PGY 2-year in specific subspecialties such as sleep, cognitive, movement disorders. And then in PGY 3-year, you have dedicated time for neuromuscular EMG. I also forgot to mention epilepsy clinic happens both PGY 2 and PGY 3-year. And so plenty of time for outpatient if that's your vibe. If you're like me and just clinic just really isn't your thing, there's plenty of inpatient time as well. And the good news is you have a lot more elective time, especially as you hit PGY 3 and PGY 4-year, where you can really kind of hone into the specialty that you find interesting. Let's see here. So Presley, can you talk about what residents do for fun?
Let's see, what do residents do for fun? So, you know, we live in the city of Atlanta, and so there is, I feel like, literally every activity you could think of, whether you have, well, you know, for me, it's music. I spend the majority of my time going out to different shows and every single restaurant in Atlanta that I can spend all of my money at. So I think Atlanta's a big, big kind of culturally diverse place. So you can do anything, anything that you want from that standpoint. What residents, I think, do for fun is going to fit into what everybody else in Atlanta does for fun. But we also, we have lots of different kind of versions of hangs with each other, whether it's kind of one night where just a few of us are off and we can hang out, or we'll do, sometimes we'll do group game nights. We try to coordinate and just kind of throw a text out there and see who's free. And then several of us will hang out. You know, I think there's 40 some of us in total. And so, you know, give or take all the fellows and other people who we still know who are, you know, still here with us at Emory or in Atlanta. And so, yeah, we'll hang out, do, game nights. We've done whitewater rafting. We'll do, you know, just kind of walks around. I think one of the lovely things about Atlanta is just being able to be outside the majority of the year if you choose to do so. There's so many places to go hike, sit, walk, camp, be outside. But I think mostly for fun. You know, a lot of people, of course, have families and things like that they do for fun. That is not what I do as of late. But yeah, I really think that there's such a wide variety of things that you can do, whether it's that you know people here in Atlanta. There are so many neurology residents to be friends with and hang out with, and also hundreds of other Emory residents that are going to be at Emory and Grady. So I feel like there's too many options for me to go into.
True. Hold up. I'm gonna put this picture up. Oh no, my screen.
Oh no, it blocks it out.
Hold on. I got this. See, what happened was it was Dragon Con, you know what I'm saying, this past weekend. So this is me and the homeboy, you know what I'm saying, Akatsuki life. You feel me? I'm just saying, we have time to do these types of things. It was lit, by the way. Good times overall. Okay, Shaneze, I'm gonna ask you kind of a little bit about the IMG life. Can you talk about like what your experience was in terms of like visa application and support from that end?
I will say my situation might be a little bit different just because I went to a US med school. So that already helps a little bit. But I am Canadian and I still need a visa. So you can either look at J1 visas or H1 visas, H1B visas. Emory supports both of those. That was a big priority of mine when applying for programs, and not every residency does support those. So it was actually pretty straightforward. Of course, you have to get an interview and be accepted here, but they support both, and it wasn't an issue at all. Getting it. I'm on the H1 visa. So essentially I extended my student visa for 1 year. So I have the OPT, I had it, and then it was an easy transition to the H1B visa, which I'm on now. Some choose to stay on the J1 visa, but essentially once you are in the program, Tracy, who's the coordinator, she will ask you which one you want, and then she kind of just sorts out everything. You'll submit the documents, and it was very, very straightforward. But that was definitely one of the biggest stresses for me applying for residency, because it's such a big thing, immigration, and you want to make sure that you're at a good program, but also somewhere that supports your visa. And I didn't want a situation where I didn't have options. So I really, really wanted to try for the H-1 visa. So Emory was able to support me with that. Joaquin helped me out. Actually, I remember calling him after, I think you were on a 24-hour call, and you're like, just keep calling if I don't pick up. And he was like, yeah, Emory supports it. It was no big deal. And he was completely right. So it was very, very helpful for me to get his advice as well.
Great, thank you for that input. Chineze, I'm gonna come back to you one more time here, sorry.
Yeah,
We've
no,
got a
go
lot
ahead.
of questions about the TY year and you being the closest to that year.
Oh,
Hopefully
yes.
you can kind of talk about your experience as an intern and how you feel like it prepared you for your PGY2 year.
Yeah, so the TY year, I don't know if it was just my year was the first year, the year before, where you had all spots guaranteed. Was that my year?
I think it was
It was.
your year. It was the first year.
Yeah. So 8 of us, so my class has 9 people, 8 of us stayed. One, Vivian, stayed in her prelim program because she had a family and the transition was going to be a little bit harder at first. So I ended up choosing to stay at Emory, and I felt like it was amazing. I was able to, one, be integrated in the neuro program from the beginning. So I met the residents. We also have mandatory month in neurology, and then you have elective months as well. So I did all of mine in neurology, so I was able to interact with everybody. My experience was actually pretty good. I'll be honest, when applying for programs, I didn't even think about the prelim year, and I was pretty pleasantly surprised. Everyone in the TY year in the program, the attendings, the residents were extremely supportive. I started Grady Wards, which was one of the busiest rotations, and I felt very supported. We had a new program director who started July 1st. So that, you would expect all these things to kind of be a mess, which some things were and still needed to be organized, but he was incredible, just like Dr. Matthews, who is really open to making changes. He really was. I was one of the class reps, so I did a lot of talking for other people in terms of scheduling. I think scheduling was a big issue because some of us in the program had like weeks in a row of inpatient rotations, and that wasn't his doing because it was just an awkward switch and the schedule was made at that point. So there has been a lot of changes, and now this year that is not the case. You have a maximum number of inpatient rotations, so they make sure to balance it just because the medicine categorical residents, they have an X+Y schedule. So they do 4 weeks inpatient and then they have their outpatient week. But for us TYs, we were kind of like, not everybody would have long stretches, but some of us would. I was one of those included. So, so we made sure to, to just be open with him. He's really awesome. He's very open. And I think just like the neuro program, the importance is just having an amazing program director who's willing to support you. And that was actually one of the biggest surprises of the program. I just thought I would just get through it. And I did, but I also had a great time, and I'm still really friends with the residents. They're all awesome. And yeah, it was a really, really good experience. And I'm trying to think of what else. Yeah, and you get a lot of, what I really liked, you get a lot of elective time. So you get up to 12 weeks, and then you do your 4 weeks of neurology as well. So yeah.
All right, thank you kindly. Sean, if you wouldn't mind kind of like touching on, if you're coming in, you're not sure kind of what subspecialty you want to do, and like how you might go about like finding a connection or like maybe a mentor in that way, whether that's faculty or senior residents or what have you, kind of like what's the whole thought process there?
Yeah, sure, I can talk about that. So, I mean, when I can at least speak from personal experience, when I came in, I wasn't set on what specific subspecialty I wanted to do. And I think that's the case for most people, just because during med school, you don't have the opportunity to see a lot of the subspecialties, especially on the outpatient side, a lot of subspecialties within a subspecialty. So it makes it kind of hard to see. One of the big advantages of our program is, like we were just saying, was just the amount of elective time that you actually get during your first year. So like I had said earlier, I was pretty interested in, I was thinking about a couple different outpatient subspecialties, and coming from a background in doing research in Alzheimer's, I was thinking about cognitive for a while. So I did a lot of my elective time, or some of my elective time, in cognitive, and split it between some other outpatient subspecialties too, including epilepsy. I mean, not fully outpatient, but doing an epilepsy rotation, kind of getting an idea for that too. So really the flexibility within the program to get with their elective time as early as our PGY 1 year really allows you the ability to kind of explore a few And if you want to, I mean, if you really wanted to, I'm sure you could do something where you split your elective time and get even more experience in different like other subspecialties as well. In terms of identifying a mentor, it's pretty easy, actually, I would say. So I think part of the fact is pretty much all the faculty are, everyone's very approachable, but most are very willing to be that person, your point of contact. I would say now, especially, there's a lot more younger faculty that are really interested in teaching that are coming on board and will either be your own mentor or point you in the right direction. So really, if you just ask about an interest, like it's pretty easy to find one. There's a couple different ways to do it, just by rotating through the clinic, and if there's a specific faculty member you click with, just send them an email. A lot of the mentors that I've had, like, I just have their phone numbers, and if I have a question or I want to meet up, I'll just text them and we can set up a time. So everyone's very approachable in that regard. If you're having any trouble, you can always talk to one of the senior residents, especially someone who's interested in the field that you're interested in, and they can point you to say, this person is very approachable. This person will put time aside to talk to you and like make sure they get you in their clinic and can help you out. Especially during your PGY 1 year, like, I didn't know who to contact to try and get in a cognitive clinic. So I just emailed Dr. Matthews, and she got me in touch with the right person, who could help me set up my elective time. So there's a lot of ways to find the right person, and a lot of ways to get a lot of different exposure. So I don't think that's really going to be an issue if that's something anyone's concerned about with at all.
Appreciate that, Sean. Presley, there's been a couple of questions sent in and on the Q&A today about kind of like the resident culture, and you kind of touched a little bit on it earlier in terms of like kind of like how we hang out. But what would you say is the vibe with us and as residents together?
So I'm really bad at picking like one word to describe something. So I'm going to be long-winded as I usually am. But so I think the vibe with us is that everybody's really chill and down to earth. We're all just humans who also happen to be doctors and have really rough, kind of schedules every once in a while. And then sometimes we all get to hang out and I hate to use the word commiserate, but that's what's going to come to my mind right now. But I think that, our program is very resident run, and Dr. Matthews is very, I guess it's not, not one of us, because she's, our respected program director, but she is also one of us and really treats us like, she cares about our day-to-day life, as her own or something along those lines. So I think we're very, we can use the words like collegial and friendly, but really we're all, I think, just kind of good, chill people that all get along, like to work hard, and really too, I think everyone's very open and accepting of things. It's a big struggle to just start a new rotation, a new year, different things. And all of us, I think, it seems like remember what it was like to be that, PGY2 just starting nights, or when I come to my PGY4s needing help with consults or grading nights or various things. So everyone is there for you. And I think we all, even though, I'm not to say that this is all, residency is in itself a struggle just to learn this, kind of wild world of medicine neurology that we do. And I think we're all just everyone's there for each other. We're down for one another.
I think I agree wholeheartedly. That's one of the things, we're diverse in a lot of ways, but I think one thing that we have in common is that, we all really just look out for each other, and we are really looking for residents who will match that vibe as well, be very supportive and everything along those lines. What's up, Chi?
I was also going to say, to add on to Presley, like, I also really like how integrated the residents are. Like, we're not just close with people in our own class, but other like seniors as well, I guess in my case. And so I'll give you an example that just happened like 2 days ago. I messaged Presley at like what, like midnight, and she responded to me because I was like freaking out about what poster template to use for a conference in 2 weeks. And I worked with Presley like last August, and still I was able to just like text her and be like, hey, help. And she just like helped me. And it wasn't weird. Like I didn't feel like I couldn't reach out to her. I didn't go to so many different people first, but being like, oh, now I have to message her. Like it wasn't weird at all. Like I just felt very, very comfortable, and she was awesome and helped me find it. So so many different examples like that, where you just feel like you are able to approach anybody, and they're very welcoming, which has been great, especially as starting as a PGY2, which can be a big learning curve. So.
All right, strong work, strong work. I'm going to address one topic that came up in questions specifically, which was kind of just about, you know, diversity and how we try to maintain it and everything like that. We've talked about how diverse we are in a multiple ways. You know, from I would say a cultural standpoint, if you just look at like current resident, you know, pages on different residency programs, you probably won't find a more culturally diverse program than Emory. I would say in terms of a subspecialty interest, we also have like a very wide range of people who are interested in outpatients versus inpatient, movement, neuromuscular, neuroimmunology, stroke by itself, stroke and neurointervention, cognitive, you know, and so there's just a lot of diversity in that round. And I will say that Dr. Matthews has been very intentional about making sure that, you know, we are not a monolith, but that we can all like feed from and learn from each other in that way. And I can honestly say I love my co-residents, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, we've been not even on the clinical side, but, you know, outside of work, when one of us is dealing with issues and things of that nature, it's been great to know that, okay, I've got like this culture of people that I can like rely on, that can support me when I'm going through it myself. You know, and so I think that's something that we hold very, very high and dear. Let's see here. And then to address one more question here, what subspecialties do we get the most exposure to during residency training? Sean, you kind of touched on this a little bit, I believe, or it might have been Chineze. The main thing that I want to point out is that you can pretty much do whatever fellowship you want here. There's only a couple that we don't have at Emory. I think a neuro-oncology fellowship is not currently here, but we did just hire 2 new neuro-oncologists who are neurology trained that have just recently joined us. And so that's not to say that won't be happening soon. And then a headache fellowship, I believe, is something that we're currently lacking. But the good news is our neurology department as a whole, like with Emory, is so supportive of our residents that if you're interested in kind of creating your own fellowship kind of semi in a way, then you can essentially do that. For example, we don't have like a true vestibular neurology fellowship, but one of my classmates is essentially going to be staying here for a year, working in the vestibular clinic and essentially doing the fellowship, but, you know, getting paid like an attending for all intents and purposes while he's learning the techniques and things of that nature. And that was because he was able to just kind of coordinate with the faculty in that particular subspecialty. So there's lots of room for you to kind of like build your own kind of process there. Sean, I'll have you answer. Actually, it might be better for one of the chiefs to answer this one. Satara, I know you haven't said much here, but I'm going to ask you directly here. Yeah, can you kind of talk about some of the specific resident-driven changes that have been made, going back to, I mean, our intern year, and maybe just talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so there have been quite a few big changes since you know, Joaquina Heasley and I started residency here. I think a couple of like the big ones to highlight, this one of them that happened kind of right before we started, but our Grady Ward service used to be one team, so it was run by one attending, one senior resident, and then like a PGY2, some interns and APPs, and it was a lot for one team. You know, the census would get as high as in the 40s, mid 40s, and for one senior to be managing that many patients became a lot. And so that was kind of a change driven by resident feedback, in that now we have a 2-team system at Grady for our ward service, where there's 2 attendings, a team A, team B, with 2 different seniors, you know, 2 different sets of residents and interns and APPs that kind of help cover the service. And so the workload became a lot more manageable. I think a big change that we made while we were in residency is that our PGY2 year, we used to have a 28-hour calls that we would do. So Friday, like from Friday until Saturday morning, or sometimes from Saturday morning until Sunday morning. Both at Emory and Grady, the residents would be doing a 28-hour call, which is no fun. I don't think they're safe. I don't think you learn anything by hour 20 when you're just like struggling to stay awake. Probably not safe for patient care. Like there's a lot of things. And so a lot of feedback went into that from residents, talking to Dr. Matthews, and she's like the biggest advocate for us. You know, if we think something's not working, and I always joke that she's like already 10 steps ahead. And she's like, oh yeah, I've been like working on this change already for the past, 8 months. And that in the next couple months, we're hoping to roll it out. So, but we have, we've gotten rid of all of our 24-hour calls. The one caveat is that our PGY2s do like a buddy call with our PGY3s when they do our Grady wards. That isn't a 24-hour call, but there's protected nap time. And when I say protected, it's you get your nap time, and by nap time you get a full night's sleep. So so that was a huge change that happened, and I think we got really good feedback from the residents of getting rid of the 24-hour call. And then kind of people touched on the switch to like an X+Y briefly last year, and then kind of switching back to a traditional clinic system. And a lot of that was driven by resident feedback and Dr. Matthews kind of talking to residents and all of us, the old chiefs, about what worked, what didn't work, and kind of taking the best of both systems and making the schedule that we have this year, which has so far been working out really well. So just a couple examples of big things. There's little things that happen day to day, but those are some of the big changes that have mostly been driven by resident feedback. And like I said, Dr. Matthews is our biggest advocate, who makes change and sustainable change, not change that's going to like backfire and affect the residents in 6 months because we have to do more nights or something, but sustainable change and keeping in mind resident education, because that's why we're here.
All right. Thank you kindly. Thank you kindly. Sean, can you talk about like your particular experience with faculty, kind of like reaching out into not just the research side, from the clinical side, and maybe if you have already made a decision on your subspecialty choice, specifically like what your experience was like making that happen?
Sure. Yeah. So you mean in terms of reaching out as like in terms of mentorship, or just
in terms of mentorship,
okay.
Do you feel like the faculty are, approachable, and like, can you give like specific examples of how you kind of did that?
Yeah. So I kind of touched on this a little bit, but the biggest things are I feel like most of the faculty are very approachable. Definitely the ones that are with you in the clinic most of the time, especially on the inpatient side, the ones that you see all the time, they're very approachable. Like I said, I have their phone numbers. I can text them if I have a question about a patient that I think one particular faculty member may be able to help me out with. I just send them a message and we talk about them. I think it's like one of them, like I don't have any concern about really approaching any faculty if I have a question or concern about anything. There's some that I like preferentially talk to just because I've dealt with them a lot more, but really, if I needed to reach out to any faculty member, I would not have an issue with like a concern about doing it. In terms of determining fellowships and things like that, in terms of talking about mentorship and things like that. So I had mentioned I'm going to be applying for movement disorders, and so I've been kind of talking to pretty much every faculty member in the department at this point. So I mean, the big like there's always you always want to talk to the chair or the head of the department. So in that case, it's Dr. Factor, and he's also very approachable. He's an easy guy to just send him a message and say you're interested, and he'll sit down with you and he'll just kind of have a casual conversation about whatever your questions are about it. And then within the movement disorder department, I have people that I've approached to asking about the clinical side of things, about the research side of things. So I have a few different faculty members that I'm on like pretty regular contact with for that. So really hasn't been an issue. And then also reaching out to any Joaquin or any of the other people that have gone into or applied to or going into movement. And also an easiest thing to ask what like who should I talk to, who kind of matched my interests, who is somebody that I could want to try and model my career after and really kind of learn from at this point.
All right. Thanks, Sean. Just going to answer a couple of the Q&A questions that came up here. Are there any service opportunities integrated into the program? And neurology department specifically is probably a no, but Emory as a whole, absolutely. There are tons and tons. You'll get emails up the wazoo about different service opportunities. If you're not sure what you want to get into directly, there's also the Churchwell Diversity Inclusion Collective, which does a lot of work just in terms of an advocacy standpoint, and service as well in the local Atlanta community. So plenty of opportunities for service if that's your vibe and that's what you're interested in doing. And then there are also tracks that Emory offers. And if you guys get interviews, then you'll hear more about this. But if you're interested in like a public health type track, if you're interested in like a health kind of policy and government type track, if you're interested in education, Emory offers different particular tracks outside of the clinical that allows you to kind of focus on those things and use that to your advantage in your future careers. And I would say that in terms of future careers, there was one question that came up in the Excel sheet about how do Emory residents end up, right? And I think that's a question that you want to ask every program, right? Because you're like, okay, what have they done to this point with the residents that came through? So we can just use last year's group as an example. So there was 10 residents in last year's class. 9 of them decided to go into fellowship. One person decided to either forego or postpone fellowship a little bit, and then from that standpoint, of the 9 people that went into fellowship, 7 of them decided to stay at Emory for their fellowship. And I think that probably more than anything speaks a lot to the type of program that we have here, because you're not going to want to stay an extra year at a program that you're not really feeling. So, like I said, the vast majority of our previous PGY4s from last year are still fellows here, which is a big thing. And then those that wanted to go elsewhere, there was a neuroimmunology fellow that ended up going to MGH, and a stroke fellow that went out to California. And so they matched quite well at their respective programs, if they decided not to come here. And so definitely plenty of opportunities. We actually have an alumni page on our website, so feel free to look at that. We're working on updating it. It's not quite all the way up to date yet, but you can look back and see like where some of the old heads have gone to in terms of their attending jobs and things of that nature. And so definitely Emory is, some people say like the name speaks for itself or what have you, but really we have the substance to back it up. But I think one of the biggest things is that it's not just a matter of how many subspecialties we have or how much research we have, different R25s and this, that, and the third. But hopefully if you've taken away anything from this talk, it's really about the people. And this residency program has truly built like a culture of like support, of looking out for each other, of turning up when we have the opportunity, and like I said, there is not a single time that I've been here that I've ever regretted making the decision to come here. Definitely one of the best decisions I made, in terms of my career and setting myself up for success, and for, meeting a group of people who basically are family now, and we're seeing go through different life events together and things of that nature. So for those of you who put questions in the Q&A, we tried, for the ones that we did not answer live, we tried to answer several of them just via text. So try to go through that. We'll leave things open for a little bit longer, just for you guys to kind of review those things. And then this is being recorded. Hopefully we'll be able to get it on like a YouTube video or something along those lines that you guys can come back and watch if you have any further questions. In terms of kind of like, specific questions and things of that nature, our program coordinator, Tracy White, I think her email is available on the website. If you have any logistical questions, I know a lot of questions came up about how to do, the application for the TY separate from like the advanced program. And Tracy will be able to answer a lot of those questions if you have issues. I can say me personally, like I applied to the advanced one and forgot to apply to the TY one. until I actually interviewed, and they were like, it's fine, just apply to the TY one. And it wasn't a big deal. You don't interview with the TY program, you only interview with us. And then we just give you the TY program as a gift. And so Tracy will be able to answer a lot more of the logistical questions as it comes to applications and things of that nature. We really, really appreciate you guys coming out and listening to us talk at you. Hopefully we answered. I know we weren't able to answer every question. You know, we are trying to keep it at an hour because, you know, like you said, we have lives and things of that nature too. And I know y'all have lives also. But if something comes up, I will, like I said, feel free to reach out to Tracy. And if she feels like it's a question that we can answer, she can also forward you to us via email, and we'd be happy to respond. Shout out to everyone. Thank you to Presley, Chineze, and Sean, who came out and, you know, and took time out of their busy schedules to talk. And I guess hopefully we'll see you guys on the interview trail.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, if you guys like want to reach out to any of us, or like had a specific question for one of us or anything, you can email any of us, and Tracy has all of our emails, and we'll get you in contact with the right person or someone who could answer your question appropriately. And by any means, feel free over the application season to reach out. We love to chat with you guys and answer your questions. So.
All righty. All right, we'll catch y'all next time.
Thanks all.
Bye.